And that has always been something that America is very proud of, about how people born in the United States are US citizens automatically. That applies to, the descendants of the ancestors of many members of his cabinet. So it really cuts very close to the bone. But he's going to have a real legal fight on his hands here.
But let's go to the USA now, where a Republican-controlled Senate committee has voted to hold the former director of the U.S. Institute of Infectious Disease, Dr. Anthony Fauci, in contempt of Congress. It's come on the same day that a judge has granted President Trump a last-minute reprieve, blocking the BBC from accessing his business records as part of his defamation lawsuit against the corporation. Let's speak to Harriet Alexander. Welcome to you, Harriet.
Hi, Henry.
Hi, and Harriet is a correspondent covering American politics. You hear her often on this station. You always give us a wise analysis, Harriet. What about this then? So I recall back in 2021, I think the day or two before he left office, Trump awarded presidential commendations to a number of individuals, including Anthony Fauci. So why is it now that, perhaps at his behest, a Senate committee has decided to hold him in contempt and wants to see him behind bars?
Yeah, I mean, how times have changed, right? I mean, this is all because it's related to the pandemic, and it's led by Senator Rand Paul, who is a very libertarian senator for Kentucky, and he has really been at loggerheads with Fauci for years and years. Rand Paul is actually a doctor himself, and essentially he feels that Fauci was too dictatorial in his handling of the pandemic, and that the lockdowns were too intense. So what happened last week is that Fauci was brought before a Senate committee that Rand Paul now heads. And this was supposedly to get to the bottom of the funding for research in China that was paid for by some US organizations that some say contributed towards the creation of the coronavirus that sparked the pandemic. I mean, essentially, it was a lot of theatrics from Rand Paul to try and go at Anthony Fauci, who really is his nemesis. And Fauci was having none of it. He took the Fifth Amendment over 100 times. He refused to answer questions. And as a result, we had that vote today, Henry, which saw Fauci by this committee held in contempt of Congress.
Even though he was exercising his right by the Constitution not to answer those questions for fear they may incriminate him.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of legal wrangling with all of this, Henry, and actually it's quite fascinating. But essentially, Fauci was pardoned by Joe Biden before Biden left office, which many say, including Rand Paul, say that means that he is very free and to speak all that he knows about it. But Fauci felt that the pardon doesn't cover the current time. It was just up until the point when Biden left. So there's a lot of legal wrangling about that. And there's actually, Henry, going to be a lot of legal wrangling about what comes next, because it's really unprecedented to have someone in this position.
Yeah, you can imagine the chilling effect it might have on very senior public officials, and it might govern or change their behaviour in future crises. What about the judge who granted Donald Trump a last-minute reprieve, preventing the BBC from accessing the records of, over 100 businesses?
Yes, exactly. So this is part of Donald Trump's lawsuit about the Panorama program and whether it was edited to falsely suggest that Trump basically was kind of controlling the Capitol riot. He is seeking a huge defamation case. He wants damages from the BBC, and this latest is part of the pre-trial wrangling where the BBC wanted to obtain Donald Trump's business records, and the judge ruled that was not applicable in this case.
But as a result of that, hasn't Trump decided no longer to claim on behalf of his businesses, and it's now only a personal defamation as opposed to a defamation and, as a result, a cost to his business empire?
Yeah, that's right. And you know, with Donald Trump always, Henry, it's difficult to separate the personal and the
Yes.
business, isn't it? And that's very much at the heart of this. I mean, you know, here it's been a huge story about how much Donald Trump is benefiting personally from the businesses while he's president. I mean, I often think back, Henry, to when old Jimmy Carter put his peanut farm
Oh,
down in
yes.
Georgia in a blind trust because he wanted there to be absolutely no conflict of interest. And yet here it's all so murky and so blurred. And that is just the latest iteration of this.
Okay, and one thing, Harriet, that isn't murky and blurred is Trump's determination to end birthright citizenship. And I understand there's been a development in that today.
Yeah, I mean, you're right that his determination to end this is not murky or blurred, but actually the legality is quite complicated. So yes, Donald Trump has, from the very get-go, wanted to end birthright citizenship, which is really complicated. It's in the American Constitution that if you are born on U.S. soil, you are a US citizen. And that's something he wanted to undo, but the Supreme Court has said no. What he's just done in the last sort of half an hour or so, Henry, is he signed an executive order saying that anyone who expressly obtains a visa to come to the United States and give birth, that will be forbidden, and that the children of diplomats will no longer be given US citizenship if they're born in the US. That second part is perhaps quite easy to do,
Yep.
but I mean, that's only going to be a very small number in the greater scheme of things. So he's going to have another battle on his hands for sure.
And the newspapers, including The Guardian, have gleefully pointed out that Trump's father, Fred Trump, was born a US citizen to a non-citizen mother who arrived in New York 5 months pregnant. So if this were in operation some 80 or so years ago, in fact, go back further to Fred Trump, so Trump's father, then there would be no American Donald Trump, would there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you don't have to look very hard at all to find examples of this all across America. And that has always been something that America is very proud of, about how people born in the United States are US citizens automatically. That applies to, you know, the descendants of the ancestors of many members of his cabinet. So it really cuts very close to the bone. But he's going to have a real legal fight on his hands here. He might get away with it with the children of diplomats, because they're under a different sort of visa and immigration status. But I would be very interested to know how many babies are born to to diplomatic parents in the United States. I mean, it will be a tiny number in the greater scheme of things.
Indeed. Harriet, thank you very much once again. Harriet Alexander, correspondent covering American politics.